Start off by welcoming our new members. We have a senator from Oklahoma, James Langford. I guess the senator from Iowa is not here. Joni Ernst is joining the panel. Senator from Nebraska, Ben Sass. Senator from Michigan, Gary Peters, and Senator from New Jersey, Cory Booker, will also be joining us. Really do appreciate people joining what I think is a great committee. But before I have any further comments, I'd like to turn it over to our ranking member, Senator Carper.
Thanks. Again, to our new members, welcome. We're delighted that you're here. The chairman and I are fairly well along putting together a CODEL down to South Texas to really take a look at what's going on down there. And I think we're going to do that maybe the first weekend, if I'm not mistaken, first weekend in February. Does that sound right? I think it does. For those of you who have not heard about it, just want to hear about it. And I like to do CODELs. It's one of the best ways to get to know people. And so whether you happen to be new or not so new, keep that in mind. This committee has a great tradition. We demonstrated last year how much you can get done when you work together. We got a hell of a lot done. I think 21 of our bills were enacted. That's not including postal naming bills. And we did just very, very good work. It was all bipartisan. And my hope is we can continue to do that.
Thank you. I'll try and keep it every bit as brief. The purpose of this is obviously our organizing business meeting. We will hopefully approve and vote and approve on our rules, on our authorizing budget, and hopefully report out a couple nominations that certainly I think will help us meet our commitment to Secretary Johnson to get him to succeed in his mission. But let me start right there. I did hand out a mission and priority statement that we've been working on, and what you have right now is the edited version from our ranking member. What I would ask is everybody take a look at this, and I'd like to finalize it before our first hearing. But let me just kind of point out what it is. Coming from the business background, I've always found it very helpful to have a mission and vision statement. Really directs people's activities, and I think this is something that we can all agree on, which is always what we want to try and do. Is what are areas we can agree on. So the mission under my chairmanship of this committee will be to enhance the economic and national security of America. As Senator Carper spoke, in my 4 years here, this committee has worked in a very cooperative, very bipartisan fashion. First under Senator Lieberman and Senator Collins, and then under the apt chairmanship of Senator Carper and Ranking Member Coburn. And I want to continue that tradition. I'm absolutely dedicated to that collegiality, to that working together, trying to find areas of agreement. And under the jurisdiction of this committee, and I really look at this as, pardon? Oh, we got 9. Okay. I'll keep my comments brief because I know we want to get to some votes if people have other things to go to. But again, just quickly talking about why this committee really offers an opportunity for finding common ground. It's 2 committees in one. You've got the governmental affairs portion, you've got Homeland Security. We all want to keep this nation safe and secure. We certainly want a prosperous America. So the way we'll set up our subcommittees, we'll have PSI. We're going to have a committee focused primarily on regulatory reform, but also there's other areas of jurisdiction. Also a committee really focusing on efficiency, effectiveness, trying to eliminate duplicated programs, waste, fraud, and abuse of federal government, things that I think we really can agree on. Not asking folks on one side of the aisle to violate their principles or us violating ours. I mean, that's I think where the sweet spot is. So initial priorities, as Senator Carper was talking about, I think Americans, the American public is way ahead of the political process here. They expect a secure border. I'd like to do everything I can to try and craft and pass out of this committee a border security bill that finally secures our border. We've seen with the recent hacking of Sony and the hacking of the Central Command's Twitter system, the need for cybersecurity. That'll be a top priority, and this is one that President Obama is talking about. And so you've got the cooperation, I think, of the administration. We'll have to worry about committees of jurisdiction, but we're already talking to the other committees of jurisdiction to see exactly how this committee operates in that. We've got to protect our critical infrastructure, and I've certainly made the commitment to Secretary Johnson, as I said in the outset, to do everything possible to help him succeed in his mission of keeping this nation safe and secure. And then again, on the governmental affairs portion, this is the premier committee of oversight to hold government accountable, to try and make it as efficient and as effective as possible. So we'll do that, and then regulatory reform. So we have enough people to vote. So let's kind of go through our agenda so that if people have other things, they can go to those. I'll quick talk about these things, and we can kind of vote very quickly, hopefully. But we will be authorizing the expenditures of this committee. We're going to be doing some rules changes, not very many. I want to point out rule number 10. It's not a rules change, but it really is. I believe you guys changed this last Congress, right? Between you and Senator Coburn. It's really about keeping each other apprised. And I think both Senator Carper and I are dedicated to not surprising one another. I've always loved the tradition of this committee that we swear in witnesses. So we've kind of formalized that swearing-in process. We've also formalized the process for notifying, approving, and hopefully never objecting to subpoenas and depositions, but make sure that's a very transparent and very efficient process. And also, we really want to encourage subcommittee participation. And so the rule states that Senator Carper and I will be ex officio members of every subcommittee, but every member here, with the approval of the subcommittee chairman and ranking member, can attend subcommittee hearings and ask questions. And I just expect in general that that approval would not be withheld. We have 2 nominations we would like to move forward. One on Rear Admiral Gay, and then also Russell Deo in Homeland Security. I know we have one member that has a little concern about moving a nomination forward through the Department of Homeland Security. Senator Sass, would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. First of all, just
You make sure your mic's on. I'm not sure if it is.
Are we good now?
There we go.
There we go. Good deal. I wish that I could be a yes. I haven't had a chance to meet him yet, and I look forward to doing that. Would like to discuss the executive amnesty issues with him. I've worked with the Department of Homeland Security in the past. Has a fundamentally important mission to protecting our nation. And they need great management, and by all indications, he's an impressive man. That also includes them operating in a constitutional fashion. And so I look forward to having that conversation with him, but I'm not at a place where I could be a yes today. Okay. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you, and thank you for letting us to move the nominations forward. I think it's sure.
I'm pleased we're going to try to move forward today, and I appreciate you because I really hope we'll reach out to him today and say, for God's sake, get on your schedule. Anybody else's schedule haven't met. Here's a guy who went to Dartmouth and then he went to oh gosh, where do you go after that? Georgetown, I think Georgetown Law. For about 25 years or so, he helped run Johnson & Johnson, and not just within the company, but globally. And he's got terrific credentials. I'm one of the most impressive guys I've met in a while. And the thing I love about him, they need help at DHS. They're doing a lot better. We've done a good job of making sure that top line of senior folks is filled in almost every position. This is one that hasn't been filled. And if to the extent that we don't get him confirmed, the folks who really get hurt by that are, frankly, taxpayers. They need better management at DHS, and to the extent they can put a great guy in there to help do that, saves money for the taxpayers. And so my hope is that that's what we'll do. But thank you, and we'll make sure he gets on your schedule right away.
Thank you.
Thanks, Senator Carper. I was going to fill in a little more detail on the budget resolution. Basically, the way the budget will be allocated is a 54-46 split. That's been pretty much the tradition. We're going to be working out our own allocations to our subcommittees. I will warn everybody that we could be subject to sequestration coming this next October of about 8%. So certainly from the majority standpoint, I'm looking at how we're going to allocate those funds with that in mind, as well as we've set up the 3 subcommittees. Historically, I think last Congress we had 4. One of the thought processes here, I can't say this is for sure going to happen, but I am thinking about really, true ad hoc committees. If there's a particular issue that bubbles up, give some other senators an opportunity on an issue that is really near and dear to their heart, something they want to maybe hop into. I'm also thinking, how to be able to staff that or budget for the kind of staffing of truly ad hoc committees, things that might address an issue for a couple months, hold hearings, and hopefully pass a piece of legislation. In terms of the rule change that we talked about that, I mean, I will just say a couple things about the two nominations. Admiral Gay, his nomination was, he was discharged from the committee on December 8th. Senator Tester held a hearing on November 18th of last year. I think he's very well qualified for the position, and I think Senator Carper spoke, I think, to Mr. Deo. I would also, I met with him, happy to, as Senator Carper said too, is if you would like to meet with him, we'll certainly arrange those meetings. So with people's schedule in mind, I would just ask, does anybody have any comments on any of the agenda items?
Just one, if I might, Mr. Chairman. You talked about the swearing in of witnesses. It was clarified. Tell me what. Could you tell me? My understanding is that that section is gone, but maybe I'm wrong. What is it?
Do you want to speak to that?
No, sir, the rules.
The rule on the swearing in, just tell me what we're doing now.
The chairman may swear in witnesses at his discretion.
It's his discretion.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Or hers.
Or hers?
Or hers.
God love you, Tom Carper.
You already planning my replacement here in a couple? So, any further discussion on any of those agenda items?
Let me just say this. Big thank you to Chairman's staff, to our staff, and for working through not difficult issues and thorny issues, but important issues. And I think we resolved those in a very satisfactory way. So we appreciate that cooperation. It sets a good tone.
Well, I'd also like to say we appreciated working with Senator Carper and his staff. And again, really want to encourage that. I want to encourage member-to-member cooperation. I want to encourage staff-to-staff cooperation. So let's really run this committee based on that mission and vision statement. Try and keep this nation safe and secure and as prosperous as possible. So with that, if there's no further discussion, is there a motion?
When we finish doing the votes and everything, I know some people have to leave. I'm going to take a couple of minutes and just talk about postal, and anybody wants to stay and be a part of that conversation, you're welcome to. Thank you.
Sure, I'll hold the meeting open. Anyway, let's go back. Is there a motion on approving the funding resolution?
So moved.
The motion has been moved. Is there a second? Second. So the motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion is passed and the funding resolution is agreed to. Is there a motion on adopting the rules?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion on adopting the rules has been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. The ayes have it. The motion has been passed and the rules adopted. We will move on the nominations individually. So I recommend that we report Rear Admiral Gay. Is there a motion on reporting the nominees?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded.
Voice vote?
Is there a voice vote, or can we?
My understanding is we were looking for a voice vote.
Okay. Any objection? Without objection, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. The ayes have it. Let's move, and so the nomination of Rear Admiral Gay is approved. Let's see here. I recommend that we report Russell Dale. Is there a motion to report that nominee?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
Nay.
Okay, recorded.
Can I ask unanimous consent to be recorded as a no? Thank you.
Without objection.
I object. No.
So the nomination of Russell Dale would be reported to the full Senate. With that, the voting portion of this meeting is concluded. Happy to keep the meeting open for further discussion. Senator Carper.
Situation the Postal Service is in today, make it real quick. They have no, it's like one of the largest employers in the country. They have no board of directors. We have no board of governors operating. We tried to get it done last year, 5 nominees from the president, 3 Ds, 2 Rs, and I thought very good nominees, and couldn't get it hotline. 1 objection, brought in from out of state. But anyway, so we don't have a board of directors. The Postal Service is going through transition from one CEO this month to a new CEO at the end of this month, and they've not gotten the benefit of the legislation that we report out of our committee on a 9-to-1 vote that would enable them to be, I think, more, not just more cost-effective, but more profitable. And so those are the challenges that we face. And the chairman and I have talked about this. My inclination is for us to not ignore this problem. One of the ways to continue to strengthen our economic recovery is make sure they're viable, not just viable, but vibrant and strong. So we'll be exploring with everybody in the committee over the next week. Our bill that we reported out talk about tweaks we might want to consider making and to see if we can move forward appropriately. Thank you.
Senator McCaskill.
Mr. Chairman, I know the temptation is just to let postal go. Just let it go. Speaking on behalf of hundreds of thousands of rural Missourians, where that post office is a lifeline to the economic vibrancy of that community, I think we are going to be held accountable if we don't do the really hard work of getting some of these really difficult questions hammered out for the Postal Service. So I know that, and I congratulate the new chairman, and I wish him well. I congratulate the new majority and wish them well. But I know the kind of time and effort that has been put into this by Senator Coburn and Senator Carper. And I think it would be a shame for us to ignore the progress we made trying to come together on postal and not continue to work as hard as we know how. It is essential to rural America. If we allow this to go to the lowest common denominator, once again, rural America will get the short shrift. And because it's not as economically viable to serve mail to rural communities. There's a reason why we had the rural electric co-ops, because it wasn't a market-driven process to get electricity down that last mile of road. There's a reason why we had universal service and the phone service, because it's not market-driven to get that, that phone service down the road. And I know that there have been problems, and I know there's a real friction here between government controlling this service versus free market concepts and privatization. But I think we all know in our gut, if we allow this thing to be totally privatized, that it will be our rural constituents that will pay a very heavy price. And I think we have the best postal service in the world, and I think if we allow it to atrophy and say, well, just let privatization take over, let it just be private, I think I'm going to have a hard time explaining to my rural constituency why we weren't there for them at this incredibly important time in the history of the Postal Service. So that's my 2 bits on this, and I hope that we can keep it on the list of something that is a very important responsibility of this community, because I think the finger of blame can be pointed at us when the inevitable happens, and I think we'll deserve it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate those comments, and you know, like you, I really did appreciate. And I thought it was a great example of how Chairman Carper and Ranking Member Coburn worked together, and I know they worked long and hard on it. Just so you understand, I have spoken with Chairman Chaffetz. I know he's spoken to Speaker Boehner. It's a priority, as you have as well. So no, it's not something, we're not going to shirk that responsibility. I don't want to let that effort go unused. It's really a perfect example of really what I want to talk a little bit about here. I've given you. Sure, go ahead.
I spoke with Jason as well. Jason, he's in his 7th year in the House. Good guy. So, some of you know him, some of you don't. I think he's going to be a very, very good person to work with. Those of you who've worked with him before know what I mean. He in his first 2 years in the House, he was actually chaired the subcommittee that had jurisdiction over postal. He actually knows a thing or two about these issues. He's interested in these issues. And when we talked, he also said, when he presented to Speaker Boehner a couple of weeks ago, his Chairman Chaffetz's list of priorities. Chairman mentioned to the Speaker postal, and the Speaker is apparently very interested in that, and so that's good news as well. So the idea is that we actually do something here. It won't just go over there and die. I think there's a real appetite for moving it and moving it soon.
And so I think the way you do that is as we started, we reach out to the House, we try and work with them, see if we can't come up with a solution. But the way you actually solve problems, there's a process, and that's just what I want to quick talk about here. You know, coming from a manufacturing background, I've solved a lot of problems. The process you follow through is you have to first ascertain reality. You got to spend a lot of time. What is the reality situation? You know, sometimes you're obviously not going to totally agree. I did hand out a sheet where we've given this to Secretary Johnson, at least trying to lay out the reality in terms of immigration and removals and deportation and apprehension. So like you take a look at this just as an example of how I'm hoping this committee can lay out the reality, agree on the reality of the situation. Once you've done that, then you try and set achievable goals. If you spend a lot of time on the front end, laying out reality, agreeing on achievable goals, it's really a lot easier finding the solutions. And that's, by the way, that's where the compromise occurs. So if we use the committee, the hearing process, to lay out the reality, try and come together to find those achievable common goals, I think it's going to be a whole lot easier finding common ground. And the reality situation is, in the United States Senate today, is if we're going to pass anything, and I know there's not one member sitting around this table that came here to do nothing. We came here to represent our constituents. We came here because we are concerned and we share the goal of a prosperous and safe and secure America. So we're going to need Republicans. We've got 54. We're going to have to keep all of us together, and we'll need at a minimum 6 Democrats to pass anything out of the United States Senate. Well, I'm just kind of counting up the chairs around here. We have 6 Democrats on this committee. So my goal.
We have 7.
No, we have a minimum of 6.
One can take a walk.
I'm saying we have the minimum, so we can actually lose one of you in a vote. But again, the aspirational goal here is try and work together, try and find the areas of agreement, pass good piece of legislation. Maybe we won't solve all the problems, but let's at least start taking a step-by-step approach to help our economy improve through regulatory relief, try and fix the postal system, try and provide cybersecurity, border security, the priorities that we've listed here, and any priorities that you identify as you're working with your constituents as well. So again, that's commitment from the chair. I think that's commitment from our side of the table here. We want to work with every member of this committee to try and find that common ground, but let's do it in an organized process, use the committee process properly.
I would like to say just a word on cybersecurity, if I could. We passed 4 good pieces of legislation, put them all together. A very proud package that we can feel good about. Information sharing, President's put it back out there again, the question of liability and that sort of thing. Those are ones that we need to take up and address soon. And the issue of data breach. And we play a role in both of those. The other issue that we didn't play much of a role in the last Congress because of the Gang of 8 approach was immigration reform. And that part of that jurisdiction is ours, and I think it's important for us to exercise that jurisdiction and be major contributors. I mentioned talking with Chairman Chaffetz. We've also spent some time with Elijah Cummings. A number of you serve with Elijah. Elijah is a happy camper with his new leadership in his committee, and looks forward to having a chance to work with his friend Jason Chaffetz. So I think the opportunity, sun, moon, and stars might be aligned on a bunch of issues, and we'll work well together. Thank you.
Again, appreciate those comments. Do want to acknowledge Senator Ernst that's shown up. Welcome to the committee. Any further discussion? Anybody need to make any comments? With that, we'll call it end of the hearing.
Thanks very much.
Get back.